Good evening, everybody. This is Naomi Smith, and I'd like to welcome you here tonight to the Power of Masculine and Feminines. Tonight's content is all about understanding whether your masculine and feminine energy is in balance or not. So I've got some exciting content to share tonight. I'm very excited to be here once again. Now, if I can just check in, if you can hear me, can you please just type in a Y in the chat box, just so that I know that you're online. So just a Y to let me know that you can hear me and that we're all good to go. So I can see a couple of Ys coming through. Awesome, fabulous, fantastic. So masculine and feminine energy, it's something that's been thrown around and talked about for a little while now, but it's probably something that we still struggle to understand. I know I certainly did for many years. And you know, we talk about masculine and feminine energy, but what is it exactly, and how would we know if we were out of balance? So, and I want to share something with you, ladies and gentlemen, and the truth is that today most men and women are out of balance, and we don't even realize it. So as a society in general, I think there's, you know, a massive proportion of Western world men and women who are truly struggling with what it means to be a man or a woman today, because honestly our roles have changed so much over the years. And, you know, if you're in your 30s, 40s, or perhaps your 50s, you've probably experienced some ups and downs in your relationships. And, you know, sometimes that can be really challenging to be able to understand what's going on and why are we going through these challenges. You know, all we know is that we feel really unhappy, we feel unsatisfied, we're not really sure, but it seems to be the norm. And, you know, these days it's quite common to have, you know, relationship breakdowns. Our children are going to school and, you know, probably half the kids in their class have got mum and dad that are separated these days. It's not unusual to have, you know, families that are not, you know, not together anymore in the traditional sense. So, you know, our generation has got a whole lot of different issues that we're dealing with now that were different to our parents when they were growing up. And, you know, there's not that many role models that are out there helping us to be able to find the answers. So, you know, what I want to share with you tonight is something that I think is tremendously powerful. And I certainly know that when I learnt this, it really changed things for me. Everything changes in my life when I finally got this message. So, you know, that's one of the reasons why I'm just so passionate about it now. In fact, I'm so passionate about masculine and feminine dynamics that I've actually created a business wholly based on masculine and feminine, which is a full-time business in training, support and coaching in the workplace, in group programs and in private coaching. And it's all about helping men and women to understand how we show up in our business, in our life, and in our relationships. Now, you know, I think this is super cool, and I truly love what I do because I see the men and women that I work with come alive. I see the light bulbs come on. I see them realize that this stuff just makes sense. And, you know, what I'm sure about is that by the end of tonight's webinar, you'll also see why it's so important that as a generation we understand this topic, because when we get it right, it has a direct impact on every area of our life. You know, it impacts our confidence levels, it impacts our happiness, our energy, our ability to cope with the challenges that inevitably turn up in our lives. It impacts on the money that we held. It impacts on our wealth, our earning capacity. It impacts on our friendships, our health, our well-being. It impacts on our career or the success that we have within our business. Now, unfortunately, when we get the masculine and feminine balance wrong, it's going to have a direct impact on all those areas as well. It can mess up your financial situation. It can absolutely, you know, play with your emotional and your physical health. Your family relationships can break down. And, you know, unfortunately, you know, the way that we are being and acting and how we show up as men and women has a direct impact on our children. and how they are going to grow up. So if we get this wrong, we are stamping our children for their future. And so, you know, I think it's tremendously important. Now, what I'd love you to do is grab a pen and paper, because I think you're going to want to take a lot of notes. There's a lot of information that I've packed into this webinar tonight. I'm going to talk really, really quickly because there's so much that I want to get through, and we've only got a limited amount of time. So perhaps grab a glass of water if you don't already have one, or if you're like me, you might prefer a glass of wine. And get your pen and paper ready, because we're going to be moving through some content fairly quickly. So, you know, the truth is that just like an apple and a pear are different, so are men and women. You know, over the last sort of 20 or 30 years, we've had an age of equality where it's been really important for us as a generation to be seen to be equals. But the truth is that when we focus on being equal, we're actually dumbing down our power as a man or a woman, because we're actually neutralizing what gives us our juice and our essence, and you know, the power, our sex appeal, our passion, you know, all of those sort of things get dumbed down when we try to become the same. We both become less when we focus on equality. And, you know, what makes us extraordinary is the differences that we bring. So, you know, what it's all about is about understanding the strengths that we have as a man or a woman in our power, and being able to amplify those strengths both within ourselves, and being able to bring out the strengths in those that we deal with in our relationships, in our business, or within our social lives. And, you know, when we can allow each other to step out of neutral and into extraordinary, we find that we're able to tap into, you know, a harmony in life that comes from the combination of our strengths, rather than us all trying to be the same. Now, tonight, I need to warn you that some of the content that I'm going to share tonight is perhaps not considered to be politically correct. Now, I've certainly had my time as the girl power queen. I've done the women's lib stuff. I've stood up for women's rights. I've, you know, flown the flag of girl power stuff for many, many years. I started doing that 20 years ago. But, you know, I think it's time to hang up the girl power flag. It's time to move on from this equality stuff. And I think it's time to come back to honouring what's beautiful, what's special, and what's amazing in us all as men and women. And how can we each help each other to be more amazing and more extraordinary in our own right? Because, you know, our beauty comes from allowing ourselves to be apples and pears. You know, tonight is not about a one-size-fits-all, so I'm going to be talking in very general terms. There's going to be some people who will be exceptions to the rule, and, you know, in a group context, obviously I have to talk in general terms, but when I work with people individually within a coaching client, I can get a little more specific and get into more depth in terms of the individual situation. So it is going to be in general terms. Tonight is not about, you know, man bashing. I actually truly love men, and I love seeing men in their full masculinity. And just as much as I love seeing women be able to step into their feminine energy. So this is about helping all of us to become better as individuals and as we interact with each other. So before we get started, I wanted to share a little about, I guess, why I'm here and why I'm so passionate about the masculine and feminine dynamics topic. So for some of you, you already know me quite well. For some of you here tonight, we probably haven't had a lot to do with each other yet. So I want to share a little bit about my background. My background is banking and finance. So I've had around about 20 plus years in the banking and finance sector, and I was in the right place at the right time, and when affirmative action was launched back in the early 90s. So, you know, very fortunate to have been chosen as one of the first waves of accelerated development programs for high potential women, and that was back in 1991, and I was working for Westpac Bank at the time. So Westpac were quite advanced and I guess progressive in terms of wanting to develop women within the workplace. So I was put through a fast track development program, and I was given mentoring, and I was given a lot of development in the workplace to help me to grow and to develop more confidence and to be able to progress throughout my career. I went on to achieve some, fairly reasonable levels of career success, and about 5 years later, I went back because I wanted to start giving back to the women who were coming through behind me in the program. So I started mentoring women back in about 1996 within the workplace, and I got really excited because I'd seen, the benefits, I guess, of how I'd been able to apply some of this knowledge and to achieve the results that I achieved, and I was so excited about being able to help other women to realise their potential and to step up and to create what they wanted most. So that I guess started my passion for developing people, and I went on to study coaching and NLP and lots of other sort of personal development skills. And to be honest, I am a bit of a personal development junkie. One of my highest values is growth, and I have done hundreds of hours, probably thousands of hours, and spent an incredible amount of money invested in my own education in this field, because I just love understanding how we think, how we can become more effective, and how we can achieve more of what's most important to us in our life. And you know what, I think that I will be a personal development and a mindset student for the rest of my life, because it's just who I am and what I do. So, I loved my career, and I went on throughout my career to actually achieve my my career goal, I guess, which was the top of the career ladder in terms of where my aspirations laid. And I went on to become an executive manager within Commonwealth Bank, and I was working in the business banking division, and I was the performance coach for business banking. So I had an amazing job. It was everything that I'd always wanted it to be. It brought together my banking and finance background with my passion for developing people. It was very performance driven, so I was in charge of driving sales and service excellence and productivity and those sort of things in the bank. And I loved my job. But it was a big job. And when I took on that role, I probably sacrificed a lot of other things to be able to fill that role. I wanted to have the perfect life. I was always pretty driven in terms of what I could create. I wanted to have the perfect home, the perfect relationship. I wanted to be the perfect mum. I wanted to have the perfect car. I wanted to go on the perfect holidays. I wanted to have the perfect friends. I wanted to have the perfect body and all of those sort of things. So I put a lot of expectations, I guess, on myself in terms of who I thought I needed to be in order to be successful. I aspired to be Superwoman, and I wanted to be this bigger than life woman who was able to do it all and have it all. And in fact, before I married and became Naomi Smith, my surname was Naomi Power. My name was Naomi Power. So in the industry, I was called Power Woman. And that was because I thought that success meant being strong and being powerful and being able to do anything that the guys could do, but most probably being able to do it better, because I worked harder and I was more driven and I was more focused, and I wanted to show the world that I could actually achieve just as well as any of the men. So I wore the Superwoman suit with pride, and I thought that was what it meant to be, an amazing woman of today. But the truth is that, the Superwoman suit and the persona that I put out there to tell the world that I had it all under control was actually a mask. There was a lot of stuff that I was not wanting to show the world, and I can remember having always carrying makeup with me and stopping on the side of the road, and there were plenty of times when I would cry on the side of the road and have to redo my makeup and mop up the tears and go into the office with a smile on the face and just pretend that nothing was wrong, when in fact, you know, there was a sadness that was behind the mask, and there was a sadness that I didn't want people to know, because I didn't want to let anybody know that I wasn't perfect, because I aspired to be perfect and I thought that I should be perfect. But what was really happening was that my marriage had been emotionally dead for many years. We were living as good friends, but you know, there wasn't a lot of passion or intimacy there in the marriage, and we actually went on to divorce. I was consumed with mother guilt from being away from my daughter so much. You know, the travel that I was doing and the territory I was covering, I had Cairns to Coffs Harbour, which for anybody who lives in Queensland knows that's a pretty big area. I was missing out on the sports days. I was missing out on all those special things that were on at the school. I was missing out on, you know, the chance to be able to drop her to school and pick her up. I felt sad that other mums were able to be around and do things like tuck shop and just, you know, go and have coffees with the other mums and things. And I was always sort of this career, this corporate career. I felt really alone as a female executive leader. So I was in a team with 6 men, and I sat at the leadership table with 6 men, and I held my own. Don't worry, I held my own. But, you know, I always felt lonely because I felt like I couldn't really be friends with the staff due to my senior role. Yet I didn't really fit in with the men either. And, you know, they were all in their blokey sort of friendships, and I was that chick that used to hang out with them. And they were great guys, but I just never really felt like I belonged in their world. I was so busy working that I didn't have time to catch up with my beautiful female friends. And a lot of my friendships dropped away because I didn't have time to maintain them. You know, I was the A-type personality, so I was always striving to be able to be the highest achiever. And, you know, what that actually did is it consistently meant that I was burning myself out from just pushing so hard. And I ended up having my 4th career burnout. And after I had my 4th career burnout, it was after my divorce went through, and I just realized that something needed to change, and that sort of life just was no longer serving me. So I chose to walk away from my corporate role as an executive manager in a very stable organisation, and I chose to turn my life, you know, I guess upside down or the right way up, whichever way you want to look at it. And I started working from home, and I started to work from home and work with women who were strong and driven to be able to bring their energy back into balance, to be able to recover from relationship breakdown, to be able to understand this masculine and feminine dynamic. And so it's been a tremendous experience for me. I have learned so much in the last 5 years. I call it 5 years and 5 million tears, because the journey to look for answers has been massive. You know, when I first started going through the pain that I was going through, I went to mentors, I went to psychologists, I went to so many people here trying to work out what the heck was wrong with me. And you know, there were the silent tears that nobody saw. There was just this sadness that I just didn't know why I just couldn't find the happiness and the joy that I really wanted, even though on the outside I seemed to have a lot of stuff to be grateful for. And I searched for answers. I'm a pretty ferociously curious when I start something, and I looked for answers with mentors all over the world because I couldn't find anybody in Australia that could give me the answers. So 5 years, 5 million tears, I've put all of this information together now into what I'm going to be sharing with you tonight. And I'm really going to be sharing with you some in-depth knowledge about this masculine and feminine space. You see, I'd created my success very much in my masculine, and the truth was that I was just incredibly out of balance, which was why I was continually burning myself out, and why my relationships were failing, and why I wasn't able to maintain my friendships with my female friends, and why I wasn't able to honour and feel like I could be present in my child's life. So So that I guess is what led me into the whole masculine and feminine space, is realizing that I was just, very, very masculine. So another reason why I do the feminine and masculine and feminine dynamics is that, beyond my masculine energy and the strength that I'd learned to take on in the workplace, I actually am a really hopeless romantic, and I do truly love men. I've been married twice, and I feel very blessed to have had two men who have loved me enough to make me their wife. I am a believer in marriage. I think that it's the ultimate commitment for me. Now, I know that that's not for everyone, but, personally, I just feel that stable, loving relationships is something that is a beautiful gift that we can give to ourselves and the world around us. And, even though I've been divorced twice, I still want to marry again. And, I hope that the third time will be the last. I want to get it right next time. I've had two divorces, and when you've gone through that and you've gone through the pain, you stop and you ask yourself, what is there that I need to learn so that I can move forward and make the choices that are going to support a happy, stable, loving relationship that really is fulfilling and is everything that I want it to be. So, I'm hoping that I might elope and run off and get married on the beach somewhere, maybe even in Bali. But I think that what's important is not whether we've made mistakes or not. It's not whether we've got stuff wrong. That's what life is. We go out and we give things a go. And sometimes the only time that we stop and allow ourselves to learn the lessons is when we've, experienced some pain. Because, when I got married in 1990 for the first time, I thought I knew it all. I was, bright-eyed and bushy-tailed, and, nobody could tell me anything. I thought I knew it all. I thought I knew it all again in 2003. But, we sometimes don't know it all. And, the way that we learn is by experiencing pain. And pain becomes our greatest teacher, because it lets us know when we're off track so that we can get ourselves back on track and learn to be able to become better, not bitter. So the business that I run now is basically integrating the masculine and the feminine within us all, and bringing together a spiritual component. And what do I mean by spiritual? What I mean is just being able to be connected to our authentic self on a soul level. So what that means is really just, what is our truth? And, bringing all of that together, and at the heart of that sits a magnificent human being who's able to create and enjoy success, whatever that means to you, in business, life, and love. Because here's what I know, is that when we get aligned with our truth, when we know what it is that's right, that's pure and beautiful for us, things become easy and things become effortless, because you get certainty. And when you've got certainty about what it is that you want most and what you really want to achieve in your life, and you let go of your fear and you let go of all your stuff and you let go of your story, you can move into the creation mode of being able to create purpose, passion, and power. And that comes from having a deep look within and being able to, peel away the layers and really understand our truth. Because, I believe that we're here to love. I believe that fundamentally our purpose in life is to love. We're here to forgive, because, we've all had things that, we could maybe blame other people for, or that we feel like we should have or could have done in the past, or, this could have happened or that could have happened. But, we've got to let it go. And, we've got to let go of whatever we're holding on to in our past. And we need to learn from our pain and learn from our good times. And, bring it all together where we're grateful for every experience, because it's making us richer and more powerful as human beings in order to be able to move forward and create more of what's most important to us. So that's a little bit of background, I guess, about, you know, where I've been and you know, why I believe that masculine and feminine dynamics is so powerful. I guess just before we move into the next stage of tonight's webinar, what I really want to do is just state my intention. And my intention for tonight is clearly this. In the name of divine love, I confirm that my intention through this webinar tonight is to be a vessel for divine love and wisdom, so that the message that I bring can reach every person here tonight who is listening. And my intention is that the people that are here because they felt called to be here, and that each person can take away something that helps them to live with more love, passion, joy, and connection, with gratitude. So, as we move into, I guess, learning, and we want to, we know that we need to learn from our pain. We know that our pain is there as our greatest teacher, and we know that we can become better because of our pain. But, you know, when we start looking for answers, the challenge is that we don't know what we don't know. And, you know, if we look at, you know, our consciousness, we're only really typically using about 17% of our brain, because there's 83% of, you know, what's going on out there we're not consciously aware of. So we're looking for answers in a very small space. It's like having a 50-drawer filing cabinet and only ever looking in one drawer for the answers. It's unlikely that we're going to be able to find the information. And the problem is that, you know, our brain is like a GPS unit, and it can only give us direction and take us to destinations that have been loaded into our maps. So if you get into a car and you're driving along and you've got an old GPS system that's got maps that are, you know, maybe 10 years old, you know, what can happen is that there's new roads that you want to get to, there's new subdivisions, there's new houses, there's new paths that were not in those maps 10 years ago. And, you know, what will happen to your GPS is it's probably going to take you round and round in circles. It's going to get confused. It might take you off track. You might feel like you're spinning your wheels and getting nowhere. And, you know, that's what happens to our brain, is because we're trying to go to new destinations using old maps. So, you know, we can feel like we're getting frustrated and running around in circles and not achieving what we want to achieve. So, you know, the first step in, if we ever feel like that, is that we need to start to make the subconscious conscious. And, you know, what that means is looking for answers that we can't currently see. And so we need to seek out teachers that can help us load new ways of thinking and new maps, because ultimately, who do we learn from? You know, our parents can't teach us this stuff because, you know, our situation is so different to when our parents were growing up. You know, the people at work can't teach us because they don't know either. Nobody's taught them. You know, the people at our church don't always know because, you know, nobody's taught them either. So where do we find these answers? None of us really know until we go out and seek the answers. You know, we think that we're 10 foot tall and bulletproof until stuff happens, and then we start to look. And, you know, often we find that, you know, we change by one of three things. We change by either chance, choice, or crisis. And unfortunately, for most of us, the only time that we start looking for answers is when we have a crisis. So when we have a burnout, when we have a relationship breakdown, when we have financial problems, you know, when we experience some of these things and we go, oh shoot, this is not working. What do I need to know? And then we start to look for the answers. So my friends, tonight, what I want to do is hopefully give you some of these answers before you get to that crisis point. Because, you know, this is about building your map so that you can find the answers, perhaps, hopefully, before you're going to need them in a crisis. And look, the ultimate litmus test about whether you're in balance with your masculine and feminine energy is is simply this. It's, how do I feel? You know, do I feel happy? Do I feel, you know, contented? Do I feel joyful? Am I feeling, you know, sadness? Am I feeling angry? Am I feeling, you know, unworthy, or feeling depressed? Or, you know, how is it that I'm feeling on a regular basis? Now, you know, all of us have all of these emotions from time to time, and none of those emotions are wrong or, you know, or bad to have those emotions. We all go up and down. That's normal. But you know, what's not normal is when we're staying in prolonged periods of time in some of these lower end emotional states, because ultimately what that's telling us is that something is out of balance, and it's giving us a little tap on the shoulder to be able to let us know that perhaps we need to address something in our life. So, you know, it's about understanding the early warning signals. So when we start to feel these emotions, being able to understand that it's telling us a message and listening to the message. You know, what I can tell you is that it's absolutely possible to be able to move to a place of living in, you know, in joy, in passion, feeling empowered, feeling freedom, feeling love, and feeling appreciation or gratitude. You know, that is a place that, you know, I feel like I really am living at the moment. And I've got to tell you, it's certainly not the place that I was living a year ago. And the way that we can move into those places is through focus and through, you know, looking at our truth, doing the work, showing up, and, you know, really applying ourselves to learn some of these skills. So tonight I want to give you some tools so that you can move up the scale faster. You know, you don't have to stay in that dark place for a long time. Unfortunately, you know, depression is such a common thing these days, and it's scary, the statistics. You know, I think there's something like a 68% increase in the number of antidepressant prescriptions that have been written in the last 10 years. So if you think back 10 years ago, 10 years isn't that long ago. I know my daughter's 10 years old, and it doesn't seem that long ago, or such a different environment that we were living in 10 years ago. But, you know, 68% increase of antidepressant prescriptions. Now, there's only 35% of people that have depression actually seek treatment. So, you know, if we're looking at a 68% increase on the numbers of prescriptions with only 35% of the people, you know, getting the prescriptions, that means that, you know, there's a horrendous amount of people that are feeling unhappy, and this is their normal state now. The biggest onset of depression now is in the age group of 12 to 15. So, you know, our children are growing up, you know, experiencing depression at ages, you know, in the early teens, 12 to 15, guys. So, you know, that's where it's starting, and the highest age group or the highest prevalence of depression is now between 18 and 24. So, our kids are growing up with depression as their norm. And, you know, we've got to ask ourselves, where are these kids learning this depressed behavior from? Where are they not feeling happy and joyful and, you know, empowered? Where are they not feeling enthusiastic and, you know, optimistic about their future? They're learning it from us. So as adults and as parents, we need to be the ones who are the leaders in the journey to joy and the journey to fulfillment and the journey to love. And we need to be the custodians of our emotions to be able to be the role models for our children, because I've got to tell you, the numbers are not pretty. You know, if you want to look at suicide numbers, they're even worse. So I won't even go into the suicide numbers tonight, but you know, we have an epidemic of sadness, and it doesn't have to be that way. So let's look at some tools and some reasons about, I guess, how we can deal with this a little better. So I think firstly what we need to think about in terms of men and women is the evolution over the last couple of generations. So our parents, you know, were probably brought up with a fairly traditional household. You know, dad went to work and mum stayed at home, and mum had the ribbon in her hair, and the kids were bathed and everything was nice, the dinner was on the table, and, you know, that was what you know, we looked like, you know, maybe 50 or 60 years ago. So the man was the breadwinner and the provider. So he held the power of, I guess, the money, and the woman held the power of sex and the family. So, you know, that was, I guess, you know, what our parents learned and what our parents probably tried to teach us. But the truth is that that environment doesn't exist anymore. And, you know, around about the 1960s, women's libs started to come through. And, you know, the power started to shift from the men into the women. Women were taught to become stronger, more powerful, to fight for their rights. You know, so the women that were born in the late 60s, 70s, and the 80s have been brought up knowing that they could, you know, do and have whatever they wanted, just as they could, just as the men could. And so these women of this generation, Gen X, were brought up knowing that, you know, whilst their mothers had very different lives, there was new opportunity for women who could step up, and, you know, create the world that they wanted, because they were strong and they could do what they wanted to do. And as women's strength started to come through, what happened was, you know, in laws of equilibrium within our nature, as women's energy went up, men's energy went down. So women's masculine increased, men's masculine decreased. So the men became more feminine and the women started to become more masculine. So, you know, men started to take on the, you know, in the 70s, the flower power, the hippie generation. They were more, you know, encouraged to be more sensitive, more emotionally aware, more loving and kind and in touch with their feelings. And, you know, men started to become softer. And they started to connect with themselves in a very different way to their fathers. In fact, you know, most of our men who were born in the 60s and 70s have typically got a fairly strong level of conflict, because, you know, what it means to be a man is very different to what they thought it meant to be a man when they were brought up by their dad. So their dad taught them one thing, yet society seemed to want different things from them. You know, after that stage, we went into the equality stage. So, you know, and I guess in the 90s and up until today, certainly women have been able to enjoy incredible levels of success within business. And, you know, I would say that we've had equality. Equality's certainly been on the table, you know. But what do we notice when we look at the picture of the woman shaking hands with the man? You know, she's wearing a business suit, she's got a short haircut like a man, she's shaking hands like the man, and she's got almost a very strong masculine sort of look on her face. And I think this picture really, for me, represents the qualities that women have taken on in order to be successful within this corporate space. And, you know, over the years, you multiply the energy of these women, send it out to, you know, women throughout the Western world, and you wonder why it is that, you know, we're mixed up today, because we've neutralized. The women's energy has become so masculine in order to be successful, because that's what we thought we were supposed to do, that our women have actually lost that beautiful feminine essence. And, you know, we've become stronger as women. Unfortunately, that's not always such a sexy thing, because, you know, I don't think any of us really want to look like this, because it just becomes the same. It becomes neutral. It's almost like there's two men in a marriage. And, you know, it's not exactly something that's juicy and passionate and is going to, you know, endear us for what we want most. But, you know, we have to be careful as women that this masculine strength that we've taken on doesn't get extended to the extreme, because, you know, we are bordering on, you know, these strong, powerful, driven women taking on the masculine energy, where it actually disempowers our men. And, you know, every strength, when it's overextended, can become a weakness. And, you know, masculine strength in women is not wrong. It's just that it needs to be situational, because when we've learned how to become strong in the workforce from being groomed consistently to perform and to step into these masculine behaviours, we start to take that on as our primary way of being, and it's really not useful, you know, in our lives. Now, the Dalai Lama said that the world will be saved by the Western women. So I truly think that women have, you know, a lot of responsibility right now, because women need to be the custodians of the power that we've been able to get over the last sort of 20 years through the push for equality. And I think women, we need as women to be able to be leaders and to be able to lead in a feminine energy, and to go back to being able to bring out the best in our partners as men, bring out the best in ourselves as women, and set the example as a role model for our young girls growing up and coming through in terms of what does it mean to be a woman today. Women are just as mixed up as men. Men are mixed up as well. We've all lost our way in terms of this masculine feminine space. And, you know, the challenge that we have is that it can sort of get into this place where the man just wants to disengage. You know, she's fired up, she's, you know, cranky because he's not stepping up. She's, you know, she's saying, why is he so weak and wishy-washy? And he's saying, why is she such a ball buster? You know, and I hear this from my coaching clients all the time. It's like, you know, why have I got this control freak woman that just wants to, you know, take over? And she's going, well, why doesn't he just step up? And, you know, she's stepping into her masculine. He's pulling away and not holding the space for her. So she's filling up the masculine energy within the relationship, which then disempowers him. And he feels, you know, like he just doesn't want to be there. And he starts shutting down. And as he starts shutting down, he loses his power, which then leads into the depression and those sorts of things. She keeps firing up. She takes on more and more and more because he's not stepping up. And then she moves into depression and exhaustion and burnout as well. And that's the cycle, my friends, that we move into when the balance is not right. Because, you know, when we get those two energies that are the same, so two masculine energies showing up, it actually pushes each other away, as opposed to, you know, the masculine and the feminine. When we can come together in those places, we can actually attract and draw each other closer. So it doesn't have to be a struggle. It doesn't have to be, you know, a fight. It's all about, you know, being able to honor and bring out the masculine and feminine. Now, you know, some women say to me, but, you know, I've worked so hard to be this strong woman that I am now. You know, I don't want to go back to being some little bimbo that, you know, is brainless and, you know, can't hold a conversation and, you know, can't get stuff done. And not for 1 minute is this about that. This is not about, you know, women losing the power that we have. It's about holding on to the power that we have, but using it in the right environments, and being able to step into a different layer of power, which is our feminine power, which is about getting the results that we want in, you know, environments like our relationships and in business and in around our money and all sorts of areas as well. And the same for men. You know, it's not about men turning up as, you know, macho, sort of, you know, all butch and brawn and blokey. It's about men being able to hold their strength in those environments and also being able to step into their feminine energy when it's going to serve them well. Because, you know, the truth is that, you know, every behavior that we do is like a muscle, and, you know, the more we do it, the stronger we get. So we come into the world with a DNA or an imprint in terms of who we are being, but, you know, we develop strength through doing something over and over and over again. So, you know, if we are in a high performance work environment and we're doing, you know, high performance roles and that sort of thing, where we're taking charge, stepping up and all that type of stuff, you know, we're going to develop those strengths. And it's just about understanding our strengths and being able to step back and develop new strengths that, you know, that might be useful for different situations, rather than assuming that, you know, one strength's going to serve us in all areas. Because we need both. You know, there's neither masculine or feminine is right or wrong. For women, typically women need to be about, you know, 60% in their feminine energy and about 40% in their masculine, and vice versa for men. So men should be, you know, around about 60 to 70% masculine, about 30 to 40% feminine. You know, there's a nice blend of the two, and we're designed to be working together. We need both. And, you know, ultimately, if we look at, I guess, survival of the species, how were we made? How were we produced by somebody, you know, who's sitting upstairs that brought us into this world? You know, the truth is that we are genetically hardwired for the survival of our species. You know, we are made for reproduction, and we're made for producing and bringing up children. That's ultimately, on a genetic level, you know, how men and women are designed to come together. Now, that's not for 1 minute to say that I don't support same-sex relationships or men and women who don't have children. You know, I've got lots of friends in both of those situations, and I support everyone to make whatever life choices are right for them. But for the purpose of this webinar tonight, I want to talk about genetic programming and what our bodies are made to do. So, you know, the hard wiring. You know, and if you think back, you know, 200,000 years ago when human beings started to be, you know, we were here to go out and breed and to produce offspring. So, you know, the men were I guess designed to be able to inseminate and mate, you know, with partners and spread their seed, and you know, they were there as the protectors and the providers. They were there to hunt and to bring in the food, to take care of the family, and the women put their energy into, you know, producing babies and bringing up the young, and that was basically the roles. So we were built for that sort of purpose. So, you know, the physical strengths, the emotional strengths, the hard wiring, the physical components in our bodies were made for that, you know, protector and provider and you know, and the nurturer. So that's our primary, I guess, genetic makeup. You know, in terms of reproducing, men looked for, you know, they wanted to have multiple partners. They wanted to spread their seed. They wanted to have sex. They were given a very strong sexual drive because they were here to be able to breed and to, you know, to continue the species. They wanted to have somebody to protect and provide for. They wanted to be able to go and bring home the fruits of their labour and to give them to their family. They were looking for youth and beauty. They wanted to conquer the beautiful woman and to feel like they had the prize in amongst the other men, so that they could look and, because they were quite competitive, they wanted to win the most beautiful woman. And, you know, that's essentially how we were programmed all those years ago. Women were programmed to look after their children. They wanted somebody a partner who would be a protector and a provider, so that, you know, there would always be food and shelter for their children. They wanted somebody who would have genetic, I guess, you know, standards, so that they could have the best children. They wanted to have great children, so they wanted a man that would have good genes. And, you know, they wanted somebody who had a status, or who would be able to keep them in a way that they wanted to be kept. So they were looking for the high status, or what we would call today wealthy men. And really, you know, that's pretty much still what we're programmed for. We can argue in any other direction, but that's ultimately, you know, the grid of our makeup. You know, men are programmed to invest less in their relationships and to seek lots of mates. Women are programmed to invest more and to seek quality in their mates. You know, men are typically still in the provider space. So, you know, if you look at billionaires, 95% of billionaires in the world are men. You know, and the women that are billionaires are typically family money. You know, leadership roles, you know, the status, the wealth is still sought out by men. And, you know, only 28% of leadership roles in corporations are held by women. That doesn't mean that women aren't smart enough. It's just that women value being around for their families, whereas men typically value being able to provide and having that status. You know, men are more competitive for status because they know that when they are, you know, more successful in achieving that status, they're going to have a greater selection of mate. You know, women still do 73% of the household and childcare duties, even if they're working full time, because there's an innate sense of being the carer and the nurturer within women. So, you know, there's ultimately there's hardwiring that goes back, you know, hundreds of thousands of years that makes us who we are. And even though times have changed, you know, it's ultimately there's a part of us that we need to honor and respect as being just who we are and what we need to do as men and women. So you know, today's world can be confusing because it can conflict with our hard wiring. One of the things that I have done now, some of you on this webinar tonight would already have a copy of my book, but I have written a book which is free for all of you here tonight. The link to be able to download it is on the screen, and this book has got 10 chapters in there about, you know, how men and women are different, and you know, in business, in life, and in love. And it talks a little bit more about hardwiring differences as well. So, you know, I encourage you just to download the book, and you know, we cover things in a lot more detail within the book around the hardwiring. Now, in terms of masculine and feminine strengths, you know, what is masculine, what is feminine? Masculine is all about, you know, coming from the head. It's about being you know, having a belief in yourself, taking control, purpose-driven, being internally controlled, having that focus, that linear or strategy, and having that linear focus, strategy, being able to provide, making things happen, being a man with a plan. You know, it's that catch and kill. Taking responsibility. It's about stepping into challenge, creating freedom. It's about wanting to be financially on track, needing to achieve, and living a vision. That's really the masculine space. The feminine space is about love. It's about goodness. It's about joy. It's about believing in others, letting go of the need to control. It's about being relationship driven. The feminine looks for external validation. The feminine is not so linear. It's more flowing. It's into the creativity, the intuition. It's about receiving and inspiring. It's about being happy, being able to relax and be nurtured, being radiant, delightful, loving, and feeling emotionally on track. And just as the man needs to feel like he can achieve, the woman needs to feel like she's loved. And the feminine energy is all about the sensuality. So, you know, if we think about the roles of women in the workplace, unfortunately, a lot of the roles of women in the workplace are very much on the masculine side. I know certainly my role within the bank certainly was for all those 20-odd years. You know, I was, you know, acting out from the masculine energy for most of my work life. And when we continually act out of our masculine energy and we don't honor our feminine energy, we create imbalances. And so, you know, the question is, how would you know if you were imbalanced? You know, what would you be seeing? What would be happening in your life? So, you know, what's going to happen is you're going to start to feel sad. You're going to start to feel, you know, not energized. You're going to start to feel exhausted. You're going to start to feel like things are just lethargic, and you know, you're going to start to feel like things are beige when what it is that you really want is rainbow. And some of those areas that are going to be impacted are things like your personal energy levels, your happiness, your sexual connection or intimacy, your financial, money, your success in your business, your drive for your business, peace of mind, health, and your connection that you have with other people. So how would you know if you were out of balance? Here's some answers. As I just take a drink of water. So, you know, if you're a man and you, if you don't have enough masculine energy in your world, you're probably going to start to feel some of these things. You might be taking risks that are are not that useful. You might be lacking some self-control. You might be in some addictive behaviour. You might be indecisive, or alternatively passive-aggressive. In other words, you don't say anything to anyone and then you blow up. You might just want to be left alone a lot and not do anything. You don't always value yourself in your own life. So you can feel like, you know, people take advantage of you. You can feel like you're not achieving your goals and that all you're doing is being a pleaser to everyone else. You don't always know how you think or feel about things. You can feel like you're stuck in numb or neutral. You lack direction or a vision for your future. Might feel financially disempowered. Might find it hard to focus, to execute, or to be succinct. You might be looking for external validation, so people to tell you if you're doing okay. And you might be feeling sexually shut down or having low libido. So those are the signs that your masculine energy is too low. On the feminine side, if your feminine energy is too low, you could be feeling exhausted. You're always busy, but you know, you feel like you can't stop because you feel like you always need to be achieving. You want to be constantly fixing other people. You're always the one that seems to be making plans. You know, everybody else relies on you to step up. You don't always feel supported or nurtured, but you know, at the same time, you still want to be seen as that strong and capable person. You can be self-sabotaging because you find it very difficult to be able to receive. People can see you as being dominant and controlling. You can come across as independent, but having said that, you actually feel very lonely, and you would love somebody to see that, even though the mask that you put up is that you are, you know, strong and powerful. Excuse me. You feel like some days you could cry, and other days you just want to rip somebody's head off. You find it difficult to be able to, oh, excuse me. You find it difficult to be able to dream or to connect with your feelings. And you feel constantly torn and guilty for not being able to do all of the things that you want to do. You can feel emotionally shut down, but also have an incredible need to feel loved. Now, you know, I know personally that I've been on both sides of this. Women can be lacking in masculine energy as well. And, you know, men can be lacking in feminine energy. So, you know, we can each have needs on both sides. And what I know is that, you know, a lot of my coaching clients come to me when they're feeling on one of these sides and they want to develop either their masculine or their feminine strengths. So, you know, if you're relating to any of these things, what I want you to know is that it's really, really common. These symptoms are common. I see them all the time. I've had them myself. And it's just a case of being able to progressively come back into balance through taking a strategic approach. So, you know, most men that come to me that I work with, we work on their, what I call the warrior archetype. So the warrior archetype is, you know, I guess personified by Mel Gibson in Braveheart. And, you know, he said, you can take away our lives, but you can never take away our freedom. So, you know, our challenge for men today is to find that warrior spirit because, you know, they've had to shut a lot of that down to be able to fit in to the society that we live in today. So warrior spirit, what does that mean? You know, I think secretly what it means is we want our men to be men. We want our men to be strong. We want our men to be in control. We want to have them aligned with their mission, to feel powerful, to feel passionate, courageous, and to be able to step up to the challenge. We want our men to be seen as leaders, you know, that the men respect and that women are drawn to, because women ultimately want to feel safe and protected by their man. Now, you know, there's a certain type of masculine energy that comes from this feeling of being powerful and in control, that warrior spirit. And, you know, within a relationship, at the core of our feminine energy, we actually want a strong man. So, you know, because women want to be able to surrender and to feel the strength of their man in his full masculine energy. And, you know, that allows the woman to be able to feel like she doesn't have to carry the masculine because he's got it. and she can relax and, you know, step into her beautiful feminine energy. So, you know, within a relationship, women look for this type of man. Now that can be different to how women look for qualities in men, you know, in business or in friendships. But ultimately, you know, we want to fall in love with the man that makes us feel like he's strong and powerful for us. And, you know, when I talk to the man and I say, what sort of woman do you want? And, you know, the men say, I want a woman who can be a woman, who can be soft and beautiful and juicy and happy and, you know, flowing and lovely and sensual, you know, and those sort of qualities are actually quite hard for women to step into who have been used to having to be the strong one, you know, used to having to carry the masculine energy in the workplace and often within their relationship or within at home. So the challenge for today's women is to be able to learn how to, you know, how to let go of the control and to be able to step into that place of peace and love and joy and passion, and to be able to step into that gorgeous, yummy, beautiful, delicious flow state of feminine, and to be able to inspire those around her because of her radiance as a woman. So those are the types of qualities that I think both sexes are looking for more in their partners. But, you know, I say that it's about situational awareness. So, you know, we need to be able to step in and out of our masculine and feminine depending on our situation. So, for example, within the workplace, you know, women need to be able to step into their masculine if they're in a leadership role, to be able to earn the respect of men and to be able to do business within a traditional business type of environment. That's an awesome place to be able to be strong in your masculine, but it's not going to serve you if you take that masculine energy outside of the workplace. So it's about switching it on in that situation and then coming home and being able to switch on the feminine to be able to rebalance and top up that feminine space. And you know, consequently, men might need to be in a leadership role in the workplace, but you know, when they come home, they might want to be in a loving place and, you know, be around for the children and nurture them and, you know, and bring out that soft side and that loving side and that emotionally connected side within their relationships as well. So it's about being able to really consciously choose both sides. And, you know, our imbalances that we have will create results in our life. And, you know, if we want to get different results, we need to, first of all, be aware of what's happening in our life. We need to be aware of, you know, how we're showing up. We need to make a choice in terms of what do we want instead. And then we need to make a commitment to make the changes that are necessary to be able to create different results. What I can tell you, for one thing that's sure and certain, is that there is no magic pill. You know, we become the way that we are through our hardwiring, through our years of experiences. You know, from our behaviour, over many years we start producing hormones. Hormones drive behaviour, behaviour drives hormones. So the more we behave in a certain way, the more chemicals that we keep producing in our body that actually keeps us in those behaviours. So we get into this cycle where we literally have built up over years and years and years that this is the maps that our brain operates on, this is the way that we do things, this is the way that we're being. So, you know, it can take time to actually unwind some of these patterns. And, you know, it starts with conscious awareness, and there is an absolute process that we can take to be able to reverse the cycle that's been going on for you know, many, many years. In fact, I had a coffee with a gorgeous friend of mine this morning, and she said to me, she said, "Oh, wow, you're looking so beautiful today." And I said, "Oh, thank you. That's really sweet of you." And she said, "You know, you've really changed since I met you 3 years ago. And, you know, back when I met you 3 years ago, I thought that you were really unapproachable because you were, you know, some sort of power chick thing, and, you know, you didn't really seem very nice. And, you know," and she said, "Now I think you're so much nicer and you're so much happier and more lovely." And it's funny because I think I'm still the same person, but I've just learned how to be able to embody that feminine energy a lot more to be able to change. And that's taken time over my journey, and it's certainly, I've seen it come through in the clients that I've worked with. So I want to share with you tonight the process that creates change. And this is my model that I use for every coaching program that I do with my clients. It works a treat. It's a, you know, I call it the deliberate and divine creation model, because it's a purposeful model for change. And the divine means that it's connected within, it's connected to what feels right. And, you know, we actually, when we follow this model, stuff starts to turn up, magic starts to happen. And the magic happens because we're so aligned. Now, I'm just going to touch very briefly on this tonight. In my half-day workshop that I've got coming up, I go into it in a whole lot more detail, where we actually apply each of these steps in the half-day. But in very brief terms tonight, the first step that we need to be able to do if we want to create something different in our life is we need to get clear about what you really, really want. So, you know, that means we go 3 layers deep to get absolute clarity about, you know, who you want to be, why you want it, what's most important to you, and how you want to feel when you've got that outcome. The next step is about, you know, doing a deep dive into your truth. Know your story. Know what's worked for you. Know what hasn't worked. Know your strengths. Know your challenges. You know where you've brought on your beliefs from. Know what your parents taught you. Know what your workplace has taught you. You know, look at who your teachers have been. Look at where you've learnt the information from. Look at whose beliefs you've taken on. You know, look at your truth and really understand how you've built up this map, or this process of maps in terms of what does reality mean to you right now. The next step is emotional momentum. And emotional momentum means, you know, moving into an emotional state that's going to support the new changes. So being able to move into a place of self-love, forgiveness, of anticipation, and creating the feelings that you need to be able to move throughout this process. Because here's what I know to be true, is that if we don't get aligned emotionally, nothing's going to happen. So if energetically we're not in the right space, we're still stuck in worthiness or shame or guilt or fear or any of those sort of things, you know, we're not going to be able to, you know, we can work really, really hard, but you're not going to receive it unless you know, are emotionally aligned. So step 3 is emotional momentum and getting aligned emotionally. Step 4 is clearing the way. Clearing the way means creating a physical space, an emotional space. It means letting go of our crap and letting go of the stuff that's holding us back. You know, getting rid of the old. And we need to get rid of the old to be able to make space to expand the new. So expanding the new is about learning new skills, learning new behaviors, making room for the new, getting ready to receive. You know, it's about, you know, really stepping into a clear picture of what it is that we want to bring into our life. The next step is about taking action. And, you know, nothing happens if we don't take action. You know, we can read a gazillion books. We can have amazing knowledge. We can go to, you know, 100 self-development courses. But unless you actually come out and actually apply something, nothing's going to change. You're still going to be in the same position as you were before you went. So it's about taking action, giving it a crack, getting out there, having a go. And then after you've had a go, you're going to get some results. So at that point, it's about, you know, reflecting, you know, refining. You know, is this result something that I actually wanted to get? You know, is it aligned with what I thought I was going to get? What have I learned through the process? Is this still what I want? And then re-engaging and just building more and more clarity around, you know, what's working. And it's a continual model. It's not a one-size-fits-all. We don't do it once and then we're done. We keep going around and around and around until we get to where you want to go. And it's a process that absolutely works when you work and when you follow the model. And, you know, I've done a lot of talking tonight. And, you know, I hope that you've taken some really good notes, because there certainly was a lot of knowledge in these notes. But as I mentioned, you know, knowledge alone doesn't create results. You know, we've all got bookcases filled with books that are self-help books. I call them shelf-help, you know, because that's what they do. They sit on their shelf. You know, so what I want to encourage each of you to do as a result of tonight is to actually step away from here tonight and go and do something. Take some action. You know, you've got some things to think about. You've got some things to consider. You've probably had some level of pain or discomfort, you know, hence you're on the call tonight. So what is it that you're going to do? And I really want to challenge you to step up and own your own journey, because, you know, what I know to be true is that there is joy, there is, you know, appreciation, there's happiness, there's bliss out there. But it doesn't happen unless you step up and allow yourself to go through the process and actually push through the other side. So, you know, some of you tonight are going to love what I've been talking about. You're going to go, yeah, God, I love this stuff. It's awesome. You know, she makes so much sense. She's cool. And I want to hang out and spend a little bit more time with her. That's fantastic. If you feel like this sort of topic is something that you can relate to, I invite you to consider working some more with me. Now, as a coach, you know, one of the things that's important to me is delivering results. And perhaps that comes from my masculine strength that I certainly needed to be able to have within my, my corporate career as a performance coach. I know that I'm paid as a coach to get results. So I'm very, very driven to get results. The way that I get results is through my feminine. And, you know, I am going to love you to death. I'm going to love you when you don't love yourself. I'm going to believe in you when you don't believe in yourself. And I'm going to be the one that's there to support you and to let you know that you're not alone, and to walk with you on that journey if you choose to decide to move forward with me. I'm going to be the one that's going to bring the certainty for you. And, you know, the certainty that I have, combined with your desire to be able to create results, as we work together, we will achieve some amazing things. So, you know, if you feel like perhaps you're ready for the next step and you're serious about wanting to make some changes, what I want to offer you tonight is I have got 3 complimentary sessions available for next week. So if you think that coaching might be for you, I would love to connect with you. I've only got 3 spots because I'm actually flying out to Las Vegas on Monday week. So these sessions need to be done next week, between Monday and Friday. And, you know, I can do daytime or evenings. So, you know, if you're curious about, you know, what this coaching's all about, if you're curious about wanting to, you know, embody your masculine or your feminine to create different results in your life, you know, I want to give you a 30-minute session, 30 minutes of my time, when we focus completely on you and what's most important to you. So, you know, if that sounds like you, private message me on Facebook or drop me an email, and I'd be pleased to get something moving so that we can get you moving and get some momentum for you. The other thing that I've got coming up is a half-day workshop. Now, in my half-day workshop, I'm in Brisbane, Sydney and Melbourne, and the dates are up on the screen. It's $57 to attend my half-day workshop. It's from 10 in the morning until 3 in the afternoon. And in that workshop, we'll be working through the 7 steps that I mentioned in that model. So, you know, you'll be able to get clarity around what it is that you truly want. We'll be able to work through each of those steps to be able to develop an action plan and get you ready to go out and actually be taking action as a result of that half-day workshop. So, so I invite you to register for the half-day workshop. The link is there on the screen, shineexecutive.com.au/half-day workshop. The half-day is an introduction to my larger program, and I've priced it at a point where it's a taster for somebody to come along who's a little bit curious, who wants to know a little bit more, to be able to just to see whether this is for you or not. And, you know, what I promise is that it will be jam-packed with information. You'll get practical experience where you can actually apply the skills, and you'll walk away with a rock-solid plan to be able to go away and work through, you know, for yourself if that's something that, you know, feels right for you. So, ladies and gents, I invite you to do one of 3 things. I invite you to either download my book if you haven't already downloaded the book. Certainly a good read. A lot of people have given me some amazing feedback. It's around about 30 minutes is all it's going to take you, and it's jam-packed with information about men and women. invite you to register for a 30-minute complimentary session if you think coaching may be for you. And if you're curious about the 7-step model and applying that to your own life, I invite you to register for one of the 3 workshops. If you choose not to do one of those 3 things, I still thank you for being here tonight, for sharing your time with me on a Thursday night. And, you know, I certainly wish you every joy and happiness. And please, you know, take whatever action feels right for you. But ultimately, you know, action is what creates results. So, ladies and gents, thank you for your time. Have an awesome evening, and I will look forward to seeing you on the other side.